Rome, 1972. The Colosseum stands silent under the afternoon sun. Ancient stone holding the heat of centuries. Tourists have been cleared. Guards stand at a distance. Inside the arena, a small film crew prepares for what should be a controlled, carefully choreographed shoot. This is Way of the Dragon, Bruce Lee's most personal project to date. For the first time, he isn't just starring. He is directing, choreographing, and shaping every movement himself. Every camera angle, every step, every strike is deliberate. This film isn't about spectacle. It's about proving something, not to audiences, but to an industry that has always treated martial arts as illusion. The crew watching him doesn't fully understand that yet. To them, Bruce is still an actor with unusual intensity. Talented, yes. Dedicated, certainly. But still someone performing for the lens. They see him rehearse the same short sequence again and again, not for drama, but for efficiency. He adjusts foot placement by inches. He corrects timing by fractions of a second. He asks the camera operators to move, not so he looks better, but so the movement makes sense. Some crew members exchange looks. This level of precision feels excessive for a movie. One assistant director jokes quietly that Bruce is treating the scene like a real fight instead of a performance. As rehearsals continue, a problem emerges. When Bruce accelerates even slightly, the cameras struggle to capture it. Movements blur. Impacts arrive before the eye can follow the setup. The cinematographer asks him to slow down. The editor suggests they'll fix it later in post. Bruce listens, nods, and complies, but only partially. He reduces his speed just enough for the frame rate to survive, while keeping the structure intact. To anyone watching closely, something becomes unsettlingly clear. What they're filming isn't enhanced, it's restrained. By late afternoon, tension replaces casual curiosity. Stuntmen who have worked on dozens of productions start paying closer attention. They recognize timing. They recognize balance, and they recognize when something isn't acting. Bruce isn't playing at speed. He's containing it. Between takes, he practices quietly in the shade, repeating short bursts of movement that never make it to film. No audience, no applause, just calibration. That's when the first realization begins to spread. Quietly from one crew member to another, Bruce Lee isn't performing for the camera. The camera is struggling to keep up with him. If you want to explore more stories and lessons hidden behind Bruce Lee's discipline and mindset, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. There's much more to uncover. As the day stretches on, the gap between expectation and reality widens. The Italian crew, seasoned professionals who have filmed everything from sword fights to large-scale war scenes, begin to notice a pattern that makes them uncomfortable in a way they can't immediately explain. Bruce doesn't rehearse like an actor. There's no exaggeration for visibility, no dramatic pauses, no gestures meant to read better on screen. Instead, his movements are compact, almost minimal, stripped of anything unnecessary. When someone misses a cue, Bruce doesn't correct them with words first. He shows them, slowly once, then again, slightly faster. And then he stops, because faster than that, the movement stops being visible. One of the stunt coordinators pulls aside another crew member and mutters that Bruce's timing feels wrong for cinema. Too tight, too efficient. Fights on film usually rely on space. Space to sell the illusion. Space to protect the performers. Space for the camera to breathe. Bruce closes that space instinctively. When he steps in, there's nowhere left to hide. Watching from behind the monitors, several people realize they're leaning forward without noticing. Their bodies reacting as if something real is about to happen, not something staged. During a reset between takes, a stuntman volunteers to run the sequence with Bruce at full speed, joking that the audience won't see half of it anyway. Bruce looks at him for a long moment, measuring tone, intent, ego. Then he agrees. But only off camera. No lights, no marks, just movement. What happens next isn't dramatic enough to draw cheers, but it changes the atmosphere instantly. The stuntman attacks. Bruce intercepts, redirects, and stops with his fist hovering inches from the man's face. No contact, no follow-through, just control. The entire exchange lasts barely a second. No one laughs this time. The stuntman steps back, nods once, and doesn't say anything else for the rest of the day. Word spreads quickly, but quietly. Not rumors of a fight. Something more unsettling. A realization. Bruce Lee isn't adjusting his speed for safety. He's adjusting it for them, for the cameras, for the illusion of cinema. And that means the version of him they're seeing on screen is not an enhancement, it's a compromise. By sunset, the crew works differently around him. Movements are sharper, jokes are fewer. When Bruce speaks, people listen without interrupting. Not out of fear, but out of recalibration. Their internal reference for what real looks like has shifted, and once that happens, it doesn't go back. The camera keeps rolling, the scene keeps coming together, but beneath it all, a quiet understanding settles in. Bruce Lee isn't pretending to fight. He's pretending not to. The realization deepens the following morning. What had started as curiosity has now turned into something closer to caution. Not the kind born from fear, but from respect earned without ceremony. Bruce arrives early, as always. Before the crew finishes setting lights, he is already moving. Slow repetitions at first, then short, explosive bursts that stop abruptly, as if an invisible switch has been flipped. Anyone watching closely can see that the stopping is the difficult part. Speed is easy, control is not. And Bruce controls everything, down to the smallest inch of space between himself and another body. During a wide-shot rehearsal, a camera operator asks Bruce to exaggerate a reaction so the audience can feel the impact. Bruce listens patiently, then asks a simple question in return. Do you want it to look real? Or do you want it to read clearly? The operator hesitates. Bruce explains without condescension that real violence doesn't announce itself. It arrives before you're ready, before you've registered intention. If they want clarity, he'll give them clarity. But if they want truth, the camera has to adapt, not the movement. The director watches this exchange silently, realizing that Bruce is not being difficult. He's protecting something fundamental. Later that afternoon, while adjusting a sequence meant to build tension before the final confrontation, Bruce demonstrates the same short movement 3 different ways. First, the version he would use in an actual fight. No one fully sees it. Second, the version slowed just enough for trained eyes to follow. Third, the version meant for film. Each one is less efficient than the last, stripped of speed in exchange for visibility. When he finishes, no one asks which one is correct. They already know. The only reason the third version exists at all is because cinema cannot yet keep up with the first. What becomes unmistakable is that Bruce is not chasing realism for dramatic effect. He is restraining realism so the audience can understand what they're seeing. The myth that martial arts on film must be exaggerated quietly collapses in that moment. Bruce isn't building fantasy. He's compressing reality into a form that won't overwhelm the viewer. For the first time, several people on set grasped the unsettling truth. If Bruce were not pulling back, there would be nothing to choreograph. No rhythm, no spacing, just immediacy. By the end of the day, no one refers to his movements as acting anymore. They call it his speed, his timing, his control. Language shifts when perception changes. The camera crew starts adjusting their setups preemptively, anticipating where Bruce will be rather than reacting to where he was. The set itself seems to reorganize around him, not because he demands authority, but because efficiency has a gravity of its own. And Bruce Lee moves with the kind of efficiency that quietly rewrites rules without asking permission. By the time filming reaches the more complex sequences, something irreversible has happened to the set's internal hierarchy. Authority no longer comes from job titles or call sheets. It comes from whoever understands reality best in that moment, and that is Bruce. When questions arise about spacing, timing, or safety, eyes turn to him instinctively, not because he insists on control, but because his understanding of movement is rooted in consequences, not aesthetics. Every adjustment he makes carries a quiet logic. If this were real, this would work. If it wouldn't, it doesn't belong on screen. Several crew members later admit that what unsettled them most was not Bruce's speed, but his lack of performative effort. There is no buildup, no visible strain, no sense of escalation. He doesn't get into character. He simply is. When action is called, Bruce doesn't switch modes. The same calm presence exists before, during, and after the movement. That consistency forces people to confront something uncomfortable. They are watching a man who does not rely on adrenaline, anger, or theatrics. He relies on preparation so deep that execution becomes quiet. During a particularly long afternoon under the Roman sun, a minor accident nearly happens when a background performer misjudges distance. Bruce adjusts instantly, not with a dramatic save, but with a subtle shift that prevents collision altogether. Most people don't even notice it in the moment. Only later, when reviewing footage, does the assistant director realize how close the mistake came to becoming serious. When asked about it, Bruce simply says, "If you wait to react, you're already late." There is no pride in the statement, just fact. That sentence lingers because it applies to more than fighting. It applies to filmmaking, leadership, even life. Bruce isn't reacting to problems. He's positioning himself so problems never fully form, and that's when the final illusion dissolves for the people watching. He isn't adapting to cinema. Cinema is adapting to him. The camera, the choreography, the pacing, all of it bends slightly around the reality of a man who is not pretending to be dangerous, but deliberately choosing not to be. By now, no one needs to say it out loud. The set knows. Bruce Lee is not performing for the camera. He's allowing the camera to witness a controlled version of something far more complete, far more precise, and far more real than film usually allows. What they are capturing is not a character. It is a discipline, carefully reduced so it can exist inside a frame. The understanding settles fully during the final days of shooting. By then, no one is surprised anymore, but many are still unsettled. Watching Bruce work has quietly dismantled long-held assumptions about what martial arts on film are supposed to be. There is no separation anymore between rehearsal and reality, between acting and capability. Bruce doesn't turn it on when the camera rolls, and he doesn't relax when it stops. His presence remains constant, measured, economical. The violence people associate with fighting never appears because it doesn't need to. What replaces it is something far more difficult to fake: inevitability. When Bruce moves, outcomes feel decided before motion begins. One evening, after the last setup wraps, a few crew members linger longer than necessary. No one says it directly, but they are hoping to see him move again. Not for footage, not for reference, just to understand. Bruce obliges quietly. No stage, no marks, no choreography. He demonstrates a short sequence meant for the film, then shows what it looks like without restraint, without concern for framing or audience comprehension. The difference is immediate and uncomfortable. Movements compress. Distance collapses. What was once readable becomes overwhelming. Someone mutters that it's too fast to mean anything. Bruce answers calmly that meaning comes from structure, not speed, but speed reveals structure when nothing unnecessary remains. That is when it becomes clear to everyone present, Bruce Lee has never been trying to impress the camera. He has been protecting it, protecting the audience from something they aren't trained to see, from movements too efficient to process, from truths too abrupt for entertainment. The performance is not an exaggeration of reality. It is a translation. And like all translations, something must be slowed, softened, reshaped so understanding is possible at all. When Way of the Dragon is finally released, audiences will praise the fights for their realism, their intensity, their clarity. Critics will talk about choreography, camera angles, editing. Few will realize how much was removed to make those scenes work. Fewer still will understand that what they saw was not Bruce Lee at his peak. But Bruce Lee holding back, not for safety, not for ego, but for communication. Because mastery, as he lived it, was never about showing everything you can do. It was about showing only what needed to be seen. And that is why the people on set never forgot those days in Rome, not because they witnessed spectacle, but because they witnessed restraint. They saw a man whose reality exceeded performance so completely that the camera had no choice but to follow. Bruce Lee was never acting for the lens. He was allowing the lens to glimpse something real, carefully, briefly, and on his terms.